Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7? I think this is episode 7 of Amorous. Last time we went on a date with Seth, and, well, everything actually turned out well. We went to a reading, we went and, went to the coffee shop. He asked me to basically tell him exactly what to write, which was a little off, I guess, but still kind of cute at the same time. What is this? Come on, wardrobe, cooperate. Oh, I guess you can change what you're wearing. Let's stay with something simple. Okay, apparently there's an achievement for changing your clothes. Good job, game. Alright, so this time we're going to go on a second outing with Seth, and we will see how things go. Let's go to our contacts, Seth, and let's call him. I knew that focusing on his writing was going to eat up Seth's time, but it seemed like forever since I last saw him. No phone calls, no texts, no nothing. It was enough to make me question if I hadn't been just confused about the signals. I thought we had a connection. He was certainly interested in me, but this undermined the whole idea. Why else would he just leave me hanging? Maybe he really did just want some temporary company. Kobe was there for me. We even went to the club a couple of nights to see if Seth had shown back up there. Sadly, there was no sign of him. Eventually, I'd given up and just slumped on the couch and lost myself in daytime television. I wasn't normally like this, but putting myself out there only to wind up with nothing. It was a hard thing to just bounce back from. I knew I'd eventually have to pick myself back up, but for now it felt comfortable to just wallow. I know exactly how that feels, and I kind of feel bad for my character. It's hard to deal with, you know? To put yourself out there and someone rides you along and makes you feel good and then just drops you with no indication or word. Oh well. Let's see. Kobe was in the shower and I had just finished watching the 5th rerun in a row when there was a knock at the front door. My instinct was to ignore it. I couldn't think of anyone who might be stopping by. A second knock eventually got me off the couch and stumbling towards the door. I half expected it to be some local group doing fundraising. At this point, I was feeling low enough that wolfing down a box of cookies sounded like a good idea. Sheldon, I'm so glad it was the right house. Seth, what the heck are you doing here? How did you know where I lived? Why didn't you call? Well, the not calling was due to me being a scatterbrain. When we parted ways, my head was buzzing with a million ideas. I had to get them out before they drove me crazy. And one of those ideas involved losing my number? Indirectly, yes. I tossed my pants in the wash before I went to bed, like I normally do. I'd forgotten your number was in the pocket, so I started the machine in the morning. And by the time I realized my mistake, all that remained was a soggy lump of paper. Okay, but why didn't you stop by the club or anything? I checked a couple of times and didn't see you. I was cloistered in my apartment, subsisting on delivery food and coffee. In retrospect, it could have been something strange out of a novel I read. It was intense. It just kept pouring out of me. I never thought it was like that. What came out of you? And you still haven't explained how you found my address. I mean, I'm a little upset you didn't call, but not about this. I think it's just weird. That I could write a whole story about. It was me. I found him for you. Kobe? What? Kobe, thanks again. You're a lifesaver. Last night, I overheard him at the bar asking about you. You'd mentioned a cute feline you'd been seeing. You called me cute? Anyway, I mentioned I was your brother. We got to talking for a bit, and I told him how down in the dumps you were lately. I felt terrible about that. I mean, I was a little flattered that you were pining for me. My cheeks began to flush red as I stammered out a defense. I wasn't pining, I was just sad since I hadn't heard from you in so long. Told him that he should drop by today and catch back up with you. Maybe get you off the couch for a while. And here I am, groveling on bended knee. I can't tell you how amazing our first time together was. I wouldn't want you to think I'd just leave it at that. First time? First time doing what? Oh, Kobe. Kobe, oh my god, that look. Oh god, that look. The expressions in this game are just so good. They convey so many different things. So first time doing what, huh? Both me and Seth blushed profusely as Kobe began to laugh. You two are way too easy to embarrass. I think I'm liking the idea of Seth and you. Kobe, how about you go make some coffee for all of us? Seth and I need to talk. Alright. I know when I'm no longer needed. You were right about him. He's quite the character. He is my brother. We have always been there for each other. He does get a little nosy about my personal life sometimes, however. It's good to have someone who cares about you. You still haven't told me what kept you locked up by yourself for so long. It wasn't something bad, was it? Bad? Not in the least. Without another word, he turned away and began digging through his book bag. A moment later, he handed me a pile of papers, all neatly collated and held together with a binder clip. My arms almost sagged at the weight. There it is, all thanks to you and your brilliant inspirational techniques. What is all this? I'm still not getting it. It's the story we talked about. I sat down and wrote it, beginning to end. It's true, it had been a while, but this was nearly a ream of paper I was holding. The amount of work and time he was suggesting would be mind-boggling. Nevertheless, there it was, a title page and thousands of words that followed. Wow. Oh yeah, let's go. You must have been really inspired. When you suggested I give you an idea to write, I didn't expect it would completely consume you. I know! I've never been this driven before. Maybe it was your encouragement or your practicality. I just know that when I got home, I was focused like I'd never been before. Honestly, I didn't know what to make of any of this. I had mostly thought it was just some playful game like his interview. The pile of papers in my hands suggested otherwise. I want you to read it. Not this very second, of course, but go through the whole thing. And don't worry, no more radio silence for me. Kobe insisted on watching me program your number into my phone, and I won't be losing that anytime soon. Why not now? It's not like I have a pressing need to keep watching daytime TV. Did you have any other items on your schedule for today? Really? I mean, no, there's nothing important I need to do. I really didn't expect this, though. I thought I was the only crazy one in this relationship. Far from it, my feline friend. Now, let's head into the kitchen and get you some real food while we go over this. I was happy to catch up with Seth, even with Kobe listening in intently. We had some pancakes, light conversation, and once Kobe had gotten a few pages of Seth's work away from the pile, he insisted we sit down and read the whole thing. It was astounding. The indecisive tone was gone and there was a confidence to it that I hadn't seen in the snippets he'd shared with me. I began to feel awkward for having such a profound effect in so little time. That would make anyone feel awkward. I mean, to just start talking to someone and see their entire, life's work change. It'd be a little hard for anyone to deal. Eventually, once the dishes were cleared, we got to chatting about more than just writing. Up in the room. Is it wise to invite me into your bedroom so soon? Did you have some ulterior motives I was unaware of? Well, no. I mean, none that I would act on, I mean. I get the feeling there's something else you want to tell me. it it isn't all about the writing. Don't get me wrong, you've been an amazing inspiration, but I wanted to know if there was something more. Something more? Like, I mean, I'm attracted to you. You're attracted. There, I said it. Wow, it feels good to get that off my chest. And it's not too bad to hear either, I admit. I'm just baffled. Did you think I was only after you for your writing skills and inquisitive nature? I suppose not, on some deeper level. I've just gotten my signals crossed before, and it's not important. It's more important that we're on the same page and that I give you a proper date next time. Next time? You don't think I enjoyed your company at the coffee shop? Or that I'm not enjoying it now? Remember that you saved me from the black hole that is daytime TV. True, one could say you owe me your life and fealty, or one could just be happy that you're enjoying time with oneself, or me. I think that got away from me. I like spending time with you wherever. It doesn't have to be a fancy restaurant or a nightclub. Still, we don't need to wait to have a good time. Unemployment is still looming large over me. You seem pretty free today. Is there something you would like to do? This is pretty nice, no? He looked so adorable when his cheeks were flushed. I leaned over to ruffle his ears. So you just want to stay cooped up in someone else's bedroom? Not just someone's, yours specifically. Let's be a little playful here. More ulterior motives? If this is all about your plans to keep us in bed, should know about that. I can lock the door so Kobe doesn't barge in. What? No, I mean not quite, but you're enjoying this, aren't you? A little bit. Actually, quite a bit. You know, I've never gotten to see your place. I imagine it's quite nice. It's serviceable, but Spartan. I'm afraid I'm not terribly good at the domestic side of things. What do you mean, domestic side? Domestic side of things? What does that mean? Well, I never really learned how to cook, for one thing. I've also never been much of a shopper. I tend to just get what I need at that moment. My foresight may be a bit lacking in that regard. Never learned to cook? Not even ramen or oatmeal? The microwave is about the extent of my cooking skills, and even then I run a risk of setting myself on fire. I don't see the point, I suppose, in getting tied down to where you live. Life can change abruptly. You moved often, didn't you? Your parents moved you around quite a bit, didn't they? Seth got quiet a moment, his ears flattening against his head. My father especially. He didn't do it out of malice or anything, he just went where the jobs were. When you're in demand like he is, you never really settle down for very long. As the two of us got to chatting, it made me realize just how little we really knew about each other. Seth was happy to share, and he brought out some things of my own that I hadn't thought about in a long time. I know it sounds cliche, but being the only child and having expectations piled on you can be hard in its own way. Some part of me thinks that I'll never be anything but a disappointing footnote for my parents. Well, that's not a healthy line of thought. Parents can be more forgiving than you think. Mine trusts me to keep Kobe in line, but he also keeps me from staying sad for too long. They knew we were a good fit when we all started living together. Maybe you just haven't given yourself enough time to come to terms with your choices. Maybe so. I suppose if I'm not great at reading people, I may not have been good at reading them. Goodness knows, once college started, I all but vanished from their lives. If I may, you do seem to get lost in your own head. You can't have experienced everything yet, so you can't expect to know everything either. Well, before we get too deep into a depressive pit, I think we should change the subject. Fair enough. Did you give any more thought to getting your stuff published? I thought you might have forgotten about that suggestion. No, I haven't really been looking into places to publish. Well, why not? This in particular is some of your best work. You need to at least put yourself out there and give it a try. I wouldn't even know where to begin. This is the first substantial piece I've written since I graduated. I don't even know if it's any good. Well, what about self-publishing? If you're concerned about getting picked up, why not just self-publish? I hear it's super easy now. It is, but it's also flooded with everyone else who wants to be a writer. I'd be fighting against hundreds, if not thousands of people without so much to make me stand out. Believe me, your writing stands out. Kobe's the least bookish person I know, and he couldn't put it down. Thanks, but even if it is good, it'll be buried in a sea of other books. It'd help if someone with some visibility could boost it or plug it, which brings me back to square one. I couldn't bear to see him giving up so soon after accomplishing so much. We talked for a while longer, glancing at the manuscript and back at each other until I remembered. What about the author we saw? Nick. We could talk to him. He was mentioning that he had another reading sometime soon. You've got to be kidding. I mean, he probably gets swarmed with fans wanting him to proof their stories. Why would he give me the time of day? Because it's a start. Just like with writing, you've got to take a chance and put words down on a blank page. Worst he'll do is say no, and I'll buy another copy of his book so he doesn't eject us. Us? You're coming with me? Of course. I got you inspired enough to write all that. The least I can do is be there to try and help you make something of it. His eyes went wide for a moment, his lip trembling cutely as he stared at me. In a moment, he was on top of me, hugging me tightly and burying his face in my neck. It took a moment and the rather awkward rush of blood through my body before he slipped off me, seeming to realize that he practically tackled one onto my bed. Then let's do this. Come hell or high water, I'm going to see my name in print. I smiled broadly. He seemed most in himself when he was excited, and I was growing to enjoy that about him more and more. We checked the library schedule and found out when the next reading was. If we left the house immediately, we could just make it. We said our goodbyes to Kobe, leaving him with a cup of coffee and a confused look before jumping in the car. We were both nervous. Seth spent the trip looking out the window and then back at the pile of papers in his lap. I caught myself glancing over at him now and again, hoping that I wasn't setting him up for failure. We made it to the library just at the tail end of the reading. Again, there was a table out front for signings, and after enough people had filtered out and away from the lobby, we walked up. Hi, thanks for Hey! You made it. Glad to see I was convincing enough to get you to return. Seth stood there, quivering, blushing and completely unable to speak. Once the author's face shifted to a concerned look, I knew I had to do something. It's not gonna be worth anything if Seth doesn't do it. So, nudge Seth. I nudged Seth forward and I nudged Seth forward, motioning for him to start talking. Wow, I swear I can talk. It took a moment before he could find his voice. So, I wrote something. The author raised an eyebrow before leaning back in his seat. That's good? I don't mean to be dismissive. I'm glad to see people writing, and especially reading, but was there a reason to tell me this? Seth's voice squeaked for a moment as his eyes darted back at me. I gave him a confident smile and motioned forward. After taking a breath, Seth thrust out his hands with the manuscript in them. I was inspired to write this book, and I was told it's pretty good and we should come here and talk to you about it. I mean, I wanted some advice on the next steps I should take if I want to see this published. The author sighed to himself for a moment before looking back up to Seth. I get 100 enthusiastic writers trying to ply me with buying copies of my book or giving me gifts to get me to read their work. There's a reason publishers have slush piles, you know? Um, again, Seth's got to do this himself. It's not going to be... He's never going to get anywhere if someone else does it for him. I looked over to Seth and nodded my head in the author's direction. I knew if he really wanted to do this, he'd need to speak up for himself. I know. I've read the horror stories about the slush piles, agent fees, and publishing in general. It's been part of what kept me from sitting down to write. I don't expect much, just a glance or some advice. I'm sure you know how difficult it is for new writers. I remember you talking about it in your memoir. It was a difficult time getting noticed enough to actually snag a publishing contract. Even then, I still have to stay relevant, go to signings and readings. It's hard work. I know, that's why I'm willing to take the risk, because someone believes in me, and that's a start. Seth glanced back at me with a smile, his tail flickering against my hip. The author chuckled and held out his hand. Alright, first 3 pages. You've got a few minutes of my time, and I'm not pulling any punches. Of course. Seth's eyes went wide as the author took the pages offered and began to browse. I patted him gently on the shoulder and went to sit down, letting my body calm down from the high. As I glanced back over, the two of them were having a spirited conversation. The author seemed particularly animated and was smiling. A wave of relief rolled over me. Alright, I'll give you a call soon. I had zoned out for most of the conversation, but perked back up when Seth came over, nearly vibrating with joy. He liked it. He actually liked it. He said it was rough, which I expected, being a first draft, but he was going to take the first chapter to his agent. See? It's worth it to take a risk every now and then. You're more than just a muse. You're like my guardian angel. You know what? This is true with me. Flattery will get you everywhere. I do prefer to think of myself as an angelic being of infinite grace and beauty. Seth chuckled and gave me another tight squeeze. I'll shout it from the rooftops at this point, even if I don't hear back. We need to celebrate. Drinks, dancing. I know just the place. It was still too early to go to the club, so we decided to swing back to my place. Seth was animated like I'd never seen before. His head was flooded with possibilities, hopes and dreams about what this could mean. I was glad to see him happy and did enjoy some basking in his adulation, but I also remembered what Nick said about the hours, the travel, selling himself at stores. What if his dream meant the end of this with us? Seth's enthusiasm didn't stop even after we walked through the door. The instant he saw Kobe, he scooped him up in a hug. I think it was the first time I ever saw my little bro turn that purple. My goodness, I don't think I've ever felt this energized. I'm glad to hear it. We can hang out here for a while, and then all 3 of us can hit the club. We can have a couple drinks, dance a little, maybe pick up a guy. That's all you, bro. That sounds fantastic. Look at me, I've never danced before in my life, and I'm giddy at the thought of making an ass of myself. Well, you gotta be giddy at making an ass of yourself sometime. Oh. Haha, that's the spirit, Seth. Maybe I should sit down for a moment. My head is still reeling from all this. We've got plenty of time. Why don't you go lie down for a bit? I've got a few things to do around the house. I'll check in a few minutes. Thank you again, Sheldon. You are the most gracious host. He's a cutie, Sheldon, and a good hugger. Hey now, hands off. I saw him first. I also may have helped launch his dream career. He's all yours. It's pretty clear he's really into you. I chuckled as I slid out of my coat. There were still a few things to do if we were going out tonight. I wondered if I should get to them or check up on Seth. Oh, could check in on Seth. But probably better to do the chores and let Seth relax and think. My responsibility got the better of me, and I started in on the chores I'd been neglecting. Kobe took this as his cue to leave, ducking out the door before I could ask him to help out. Hey, thanks for the chores. I almost forgot. I'm meeting someone for coffee before the club anyway. It never seemed to really work out well, being the practical one of the two of us. Still, left to my own devices, I made short work of the dishes and the cleaning. It wasn't long before the sun had begun to dip in the sky. I hadn't heard a peep out of Seth despite my activity out front. I took off the latex gloves I'd been using and left them on the counter as I peeked into the bedroom. Clearly, Seth had overestimated his stamina. He was out cold and snoring softly. Oh man. Let him sleep. Multiple days in a row of writing, seemingly with little sleep, I'd clearly been tough on him. I know he wanted to celebrate, but maybe what he really needs is rest. I must have dozed off for a second myself, because when my eyes flickered open, Seth was stretching and yawning as he got back to his feet. Oof, what happened? You fell asleep about 5 hours ago, in Kobe's bed no less, which makes you one of the few people to just sleep in it besides him. I guess I was more exhausted than I thought. Sorry I wasn't more fun tonight. It's alright, we had an exciting day. That and I much prefer sleeping in the same room as you to not hearing from you. Sheldon? As I sat on the edge of my bed, Seth padded softly over to me, draping his arms around me. He slid smoothly into my lap and pressed his lips firmly but gently against my own. We held each other in that moment, cloaked in darkness and on such a silent night, just keeping close and safe in each other's arms. When the kiss finally broke, reluctantly on both our ends, Seth smiled down at me and rested his head on my shoulder for a moment, before slowly sliding back out of my lap. That's my way of saying thank you. Thank you for humoring me, pushing me, and most of all for being willing to put up with my vanishing. Not many other people would be willing to take someone back after that. I'm not most people, Seth, and if that kiss was any indication, you are certainly worth waiting for. You are such a flatterer. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm up for much more tonight. That full-body giddy high I was on has faded and my body is threatening to rebel against my currently vertical position. Aw, it's kind of cute. Let me take you home. Let me drive you home then. I wouldn't want you to pass out on the way and get in an accident. It's alright, it's not far and the traffic will be light. Besides, my place is an absolute pigsty right now, and I couldn't bear to have you see that. I have a lukewarm coffee in the car. Only if you're absolutely sure. I am. Fair warning though, keep your schedule clear. I intend to make up for these half-hearted dates with something spectacular. I guess I look forward to it. Can't wait to see what you might have planned. Just make sure to pull out all the stops. I assure you, not a single stop will remain unpulled in my entire apartment. He gathered his things together and after another peck on the cheek goodbye, made his way out the door. Doubts still lingered about Seth's book. It brought us together for the moment, but I couldn't help worry it might also break us apart. Then again, that's what dating was all about, it seems. Being willing to put yourself out there and take a chance that you can make a connection. It's not like I was seeing him for free lunches and attention. This was clearly important to him. Alright. On that note, since that is the end of that date, I'm going to call it here. And next time we will see Seth again and probably have our final date with him. Thank you very much for watching and have a good day.